Love to the extreme is worship. Um, think about the terrifying implications of that statement for a second.
It's intense, yeah.
Right. It means that if you push love far enough, it stops being about connection. It mutates into a total surrender of your own identity.
Exactly. You're not engaging with the object anymore.
Yeah, you are completely consumed by it. So today on the deep dive, we're venturing into the absolute limits of human emotion. We have this really provocative essay from 2021 by a writer named Feng.
It's a fantastic source text.
It really is.
Yeah.
And our mission today is to examine what actually happens to the human mind when love sheds all of its rationality, and transforms into just sheer, unadulterated worship.
Okay.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if you are listening to this right now, I want you to ask yourself if you've ever loved something or someone so much that you completely lost your mind.
And we aren't just talking about, being a dedicated fan here.
No, we are talking about an emotional event horizon.
Yeah, it's a fascinating premise because it immediately forces us to discard our conventional definitions of love. Like in our daily lives, we think of love as this nurturing, reciprocal, deeply human connection.
Right, it grounds us. It's supposed to make us better people.
Exactly, it's grounded. But the text we are examining today argues that when love hits its absolute apex, it detaches from all of those grounded qualities. It becomes an entirely different psychological phenomenon altogether.
A completely different beast.
Yeah. The author defines worship as the ultimate expression of emotionalism in the spiritual world. It's this state where the emotion becomes so large, so dense, that it literally crowds out every other cognitive function.
It's wild. And to even begin to understand this state of being, we kind of have to strip away everything we associate with normal, healthy affection.
We really do.
Because the text says that when worship occupies someone's mind, they become entirely irrational. They are fervently obsessed, like intoxicated.
Intoxicated is the perfect word for it.
Right. And it's not just a feeling. It physically rewires how they interact with reality.
Yeah.
The imagery in the text gets incredibly intense here. It points out that verbal expression just fails completely at this stage. You literally cannot speak your feelings anymore.
Yeah, because language requires logic, right? It requires syntax and structure.
Yep.
But when the nervous system is completely hijacked by this level of extreme emotion, language simply isn't a large enough vessel to contain the experience.
It just breaks down.
Exactly. The cognitive centers of the brain that form sentences are just utterly overwhelmed.
So they resort to these physical extremes. The text describes worshipers shouting, waving their arms in hysteria. It talks about kissing the cheeks, the hands, the toes, or even, and this is explicitly in the essay, the buttocks of the worshipped object or person.
It's total surrender.
Total unhesitating surrender of human dignity.
Yeah.
When I was reading this, I tried to find a modern equivalent, but, it's not just being a superfan. Like a superfan screaming at a concert still knows they have to wake up for work tomorrow.
Right. They still have an ego. They haven't lost themselves completely.
Exactly. This text is describing something closer to a spiritual anesthesia, the part of your brain that processes self-preservation, dignity, social norms. It's completely anesthetized by the sheer volume of emotion.
And any minor change triggers them.
Yeah, the text notes that any change in the worshipped entity triggers immediate hysteria. The worshiper is basically a raw nerve, entirely dependent on this outside object.
What's fascinating here is that the author makes a very stark, very specific delineation about what this state actually is, and more importantly, what it isn't.
Yeah.
The most shocking part of the thesis is the assertion that worship is entirely unrelated to morality.
That part was wild to me.
Right. It is unrelated to ethics. It has absolutely nothing to do with culture or correctness or philosophy or science.
I found that incredibly difficult to digest at first, honestly. I mean, as humans, we desperately want to categorize things as good or bad.
Yeah.
We want to say worshiping this ideal is good, but worshiping that person is bad.
We do. We naturally want to do that. But the author is arguing that worship exists completely outside of those constructs. It is a purely psychological activity. It is the rawest, most unfiltered manifestation of emotion possible.
It's just a mechanism.
Exactly. When you try to bring morality into it, you are trying to apply a logical cognitive framework to a process that has already bypassed the cognitive parts of the brain completely. It's like you are trying to use the rules of physics to explain a dream. It just doesn't apply.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. So if this state completely bypasses logic, science, and morality, what does it actually look like in practice? Like, how do we identify the mechanics of it?
Well, the text gives us a really detailed 8-point roadmap of the characteristics of worship.
But it's not just a random list, right?
No, not at all. There is a distinct causality to how these traits manifest. It's a cascade effect. The author breaks it down to show how the mind unravels and rebuilds itself around the object of worship.
Okay, lay it out for us.
So it starts with the catalyst, which is blindness and a fervent emotional outburst. Your critical thinking shuts down and the emotion just floods in.
Right.
But the ultimate mechanism here, the core of the entire phenomenon, is the third characteristic, love to the point of self-non-existence.
Self-non-existence. Wow. You literally stop being you. Your ego, your memories, your desires, they are just erased in the presence of the object.
Exactly. Your entire identity becomes just a mirror reflecting the thing you worship.
That is terrifying.
It is. And once your self is gone, the other dominoes fall inevitably. You become completely irrational and fanatical, which are the fourth and fifth traits.
Because there's no you left to reason with.
Precisely. But paradoxically, this leads to the sixth characteristic, which is ultimate purity.
Purity, how so?
Well, because you have no ego, you have no hidden agenda, you have no secondary motive, you aren't doing this to look good or to gain power. It is pure, unadulterated devotion.
Okay, I get that. Which brings us to the final two characteristics, and this is where I really have to strongly push back on the author's premise.
Yeah, this is the controversial part.
Definitely. So the seventh trait is that the worshiper becomes indifferent to true or false, good or evil, beauty or ugliness, right or wrong. And the eighth is that they become fearless of danger and death.
Right.
Now, I understand the logic. Like if yourself no longer exists, you have nothing to fear losing. But wait, indifferent to true or false.
Yeah.
Indifferent to good or evil.
It's a scary thought.
If someone is completely stripped of their moral compass, isn't that just a recipe for absolute disaster? I mean, if you don't care about what is right or wrong, what stops you from doing horrific things in the name of whatever you are worshiping?
Nothing stops you.
Right. That doesn't sound like enlightenment to me.
Yeah.
That sounds like psychosis. How does the author defend that?
Well, it looks exactly like psychosis to us, and you are absolutely right to be alarmed. That is the crucial tension of the entire essay.
Okay.
The author doesn't deny the danger. In fact, they address it head-on with this really profound metaphor. They compare worship to the relationship between poison and medicine.
Poison and medicine.
Yeah, the text states, poison may sometimes be a precious medicine, while medicine may sometimes be a corrosive poison. Worship is both poison and medicine.
So it's like the ultimate double-edged sword.
Yeah.
But how can it be both at the exact same time?
Because the mechanism of action is identical. The exact same neural and psychological surrender that allows someone to feel transcendent, ultimate joy is the very vulnerability that can utterly destroy them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The text explicitly says that worship has two diametrically opposite consequences. It is simultaneously the most dangerous thing in the world and the safest.
Depending on the target.
Exactly. Worshipping the wrong object leads straight to hell. Because you have no moral compass, no rationality, and no fear of death, you can be manipulated into committing atrocities or destroying your own life.
Like joining a destructive cult. The vulnerability is the point of entry.
Exactly. But, the author argues, worshipping the right object leads directly to eternal bliss in heaven. The psychological mechanism of self-erasure is what allows you to cross the threshold into true spiritual ecstasy.
So you have to lose yourself to get there.
You do. You cannot experience that ultimate joy while holding on to your rational mind and your moral metrics. It is a gamble of the highest possible stakes, with your entire consciousness pushed to the center of the table.
Man, since the stakes are literally heaven or hell, the human brain must be incredibly selective about what it attaches this feeling to.
Right. You would think so, but no.
So what actually triggers this level of devotion? The text points out that the targets of worship have been incredibly diverse across human history. We see totem worship, ancestor worship, power worship.
Money, too.
Yeah, people worship money, sexual organs, art, idols. They worship personal masters or abstract spiritual concepts like the Pure Land.
The diversity of the targets really proves the author's point that the object itself almost doesn't matter as much as the psychological mechanism it unlocks within the worshiper.
It's the key fitting the lock.
Yes. The human mind is just desperately searching for a catalyst to initiate this state of self-non-existence.
But here's the thing. I look back at history, or even look at certain modern subcultures, and I see people bowing down to, carved pieces of wood, or throwing their life savings at a charismatic leader, or sobbing hysterically over a celebrity who doesn't even know they exist.
Yeah, it's jarring to see.
It is. And my rational brain just thinks, they are so foolish. How can they be so ignorant? And the text actually notes this. It says that outsiders often find these historical instances of worship laughable and pitiful.
Oh, totally.
What am I missing when I look at them and just cringe?
Well, you are judging an irrational state using rational metrics. It is like trying to measure the temperature of a star with a wooden ruler.
That's a great analogy.
The tool is entirely inappropriate for the subject. You are looking at the outward behavior, the crying, the kissing of the toes, and you're evaluating it through the lens of social dignity. But the worshiper is experiencing an internal state that has completely transcended social dignity.
Yeah, the author has a really good analogy to explain this cognitive dissonance, too. Like, why outsiders find worshipers so ridiculous. They compare the state of worship to physical ecstasy.
Right, the climax analogy.
Yes. The text argues that just as someone who has never experienced a climax of sexual ecstasy cannot possibly comprehend that sensation by just reading about it, a highly rational person can never understand the extreme joy within a worshiper's heart.
It's fundamentally impossible.
Yeah. You can observe their erratic behavior all day long, but until your own brain chemistry crosses that specific threshold, you're fundamentally on the outside looking in. You're just blind to the actual experience.
This raises an important question about perception versus reality. We have this massive chasm between two distinct groups of human beings.
The two camps.
Right. On one side, we have the rational observers. When we look at a worshiper, and the text uses this striking image of a madman in tattered clothes who hasn't washed, shouting irrationally in the street, we look at them and we feel pity.
Yeah, we do.
We see someone who has lost their mind, lost their dignity, and lost their grip on reality.
Right. They look broken to us. They look like they need an intervention or something.
But we have to invert the perspective. How do we look to them? The author answers this quite bluntly. In the world of the irrational, the worshiper looks at us and sees expressionless wooden or stone figures.
Wow.
They see us as grotesque monsters with no genuine interest in anything.
Grotesque monsters. That phrasing is just so powerful because from their perspective, we are dead inside.
Completely hollow.
We are walking around paying our taxes, following traffic laws, debating politics, completely and totally cut off from the vibrant, blinding, absolute color of the universe that they're swimming in.
Exactly.
To them, our rational, safe, emotionally regulated lives look like a tragedy. They are experiencing the absolute peak of emotional sensation, and we are just managing logistics.
It is a profound mutual misunderstanding. The worshiper pities the rationalist for being a hollow stone figure, and the rationalist pities the worshiper for being a deluded madman. Which brings us to the fundamental structural problem of human society that the author identifies.
So what does this all mean for us? Like, if you have this massive, unbridgeable divide between the cold, expressionless rationalists and the ecstatic, irrational madmen, how does a functioning society actually work?
It's the million-dollar question.
Who gets to drive the bus? Because it seems like if the worshipers are driving, society goes off a cliff into total chaos. But if the rationalists are driving, the journey is incredibly bleak and devoid of transcendent meaning.
The author provides a very pragmatic answer to that exact problem, actually. The text explicitly states that in the material world, the physical realm where infrastructure must be maintained, laws must be enforced, resources managed, it is best to let those without worshipful tendencies manage things.
The rational people. The stone
The
figures.
stone figures, yeah. Why? Because their rationality brings order. It brings fairness, and it brings peace to the world. A society run by people who are entirely irrational, who have erased their own egos, and who are indifferent to right and wrong, simply cannot sustain itself.
They just burn it all down accidentally.
Yeah, the worshippers would starve while staring at the sun.
You need the people who care about logic to keep the power grid running and the water clean. You need the people who aren't blinded by fervor to create a justice system that is actually objective.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is the grand, tragic trade-off of the human condition that surfing is highlighting. It is a zero-sum game of the soul.
How so?
Well, the rational people are absolutely necessary. They are the bedrock of civilization. They bring peace and order. But the cost of that rationality is enormous.
Because they can't feel the extreme joy. Their logic acts as like a ceiling on their emotional capacity.
Precisely. The text says that rational people find it difficult, if not impossible, to feel and experience the wonders of heaven. Because they refuse to let go of their ego and their critical thinking, they are permanently barred from the ultimate psychological high.
Oh, man.
The most wonderful, transcendent experiences a human mind can generate belong exclusively to those who possess a sense of worship.
But The worshippers pay an incredibly steep price for that ticket to heaven, don't they? It's not a free ride at all.
Oh, it's the highest price imaginable. Because they operate with absolute trust, absolute adoration, and zero critical thinking, they are uniquely vulnerable.
Right.
The text states, bluntly, worshippers are the easiest to manipulate. They have literally handed over the keys to their own consciousness. And because they are so easily manipulated, they are the easiest to send to hell.
That's chilling.
A rational person might be scammed out of their money, but a worshipper can be manipulated into destroying their very soul.
It creates this fascinating, almost tragic symbiosis. Like the worshippers desperately need the rational people to build a safe, orderly material world so they aren't immediately destroyed by their own fearlessness and lack of self-preservation.
Exact.
But the rational people, in a way, need the existence of the worshippers to remind them that the human emotional capacity goes so much deeper than just spreadsheets, logic, and fairness. Without the worshippers, humanity is just a machine.
It is a symbiotic relationship where neither side can fully comprehend the other, yet both are essential to the full spectrum of the human experience.
It reminds me of the end of the essay, which I think is one of the most striking conclusions we've ever covered on a deep dive.
It's beautiful.
After this entire complex psychological breakdown, the author wraps up the essay with a poem. It acts as a lament and a celebration all at once.
Yeah, the author writes, "Oh, worshippers, how pitiful. Oh, worshippers, how beautiful."
Pitiful because they have surrendered their autonomy. Pitiful because they can be led into the darkest depths of manipulation without a second thought.
But beautiful, too.
Yeah, beautiful because they, and only they, know what it actually feels like to touch heaven.
Yeah.
They're beautiful because they've achieved the ultimate human vulnerability, to love something so completely that the self evaporates entirely.
It really forces every single one of us to confront our own internal makeup. Think about modern society. We spend so much time and energy cultivating our rationality.
Oh, absolutely.
We pride ourselves on being logical, on being skeptical, on not being easily fooled. We want to see the world objectively. We build our entire identities around our ability to analyze and critique the world around us.
We want to be the ones managing the material world. We want to be the adults in the room bringing order to the chaos.
We do. But the text argues that a highly rational person will never develop a sense of worship. It's a closed door. Your skepticism is a shield, sure, but it is also a cage.
Wow.
If that premise is true, it leaves us with a deeply unsettling question about how we choose to live our lives. By tightly clinging to your rationality, by guarding your logic, your autonomy, and your desire for order so fiercely, are you actively sacrificing your capacity to ever experience ultimate transcendent joy?
Are you consciously choosing to be an expressionless stone figure just to avoid the risk of being a manipulated madman?
Exactly.
It all circles back to that very first thought we started with. Love to the extreme is worship. If you never allow yourself to lose your mind, if you never allow your love to reach that absolute ego-destroying extreme, what are you missing out on?
It's a heavy thought.
It really is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the absolute limits of the human heart. We'll leave you to mull that over.